Hey. Welcome back, Camelback fam, to another episode of Humble and Hungry, the series where we sit down with revolutionary entrepreneurs who are changing the game in education and technology. I am your host, Lex Lindsay, Senior Associate of Marketing and Communications here at Camelback, and I am thrilled to have joining me Miss Aiyeshia Hudson-Wong, the founder of Liberation Journeys and a 2023 Camelback Fellow. Aiyeshia, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I feel very rejuvenated and just eager and excited about 2024.
Yes. Same. Likewise, we're jumping into 2024 on the go. Just like got right to work as soon as we got back to work. So excited to have you here joining us and to hear more about the work that you're doing with Liberation Journeys and just hop into this conversation. So I know I did a quick introduction, but for those who are not familiar with you and the work that you're doing with Liberation Journeys, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So, again, my name is Aiyeshia Hudson-Wong, and I'm the founder and executive director of Liberation Journeys. At Liberation Journeys, we pretty much equip schools with the tools to build authentic partnerships with students so that schools can co design and co create school culture that puts their student voices, and identity and belonging in the forefront. Essentially, through that, we offer two pathways to school. So we have two offerings. So one is we offer professional development to help schools learn how to take some really practical tools and strategies to weave student voice throughout their vision, their policy design, and their instructional practices. And then we also offer SEL curriculum that's designed to help students with building the skills to develop their social and emotional awareness, their leadership skills, and also teach them how to become advocates of their learning environment and how to advocate for the wellness of their school community.
Oh man, that's awesome. So really taking kind of like this holistic approach within a school, approaching like the professional development of the educators in the room, but also supporting the students and becoming, greater advocates for their learning and journey, and being able to share their voice. So I love that. I love that. Tackling it from
Yeah.
both sides.
I love how you restated that too. You're the first person to like repeat back to me what I'm trying to do so eloquently.
Thank you. I did my little bit of research. I did my research. So I like to start off from the beginning and take it to the way back. And talk about what experiences led you to pursuing entrepreneurship, and led to the founding of Liberation Journeys.
Yeah, so I gotta go way back to the way back for that one, just because it's like every day when I wake up and do this work, it blows my mind that I'm even doing it because the idea of being an entrepreneur just is something that was so far from me. Like that's just not who I ever thought I would be. But I didn't know that like actually that entrepreneurial spirit was always in me. It was always a part of my essential self and it played out in different ways. I just didn't know what it was and I didn't know that it was leading me here today. So I guess I'll go back to, right out of college, going into community organizing and back in my hometown, Miami. I'm from Miami, Florida, born and raised. And, the community organizing I was doing was focused on affordable housing and racial justice. And that was like my eye-opening moment for me. That was like my aha years. Those were my formative years in like shaping my worldview and perspective around like what is really the sort of work I'm supposed to be doing, what's really like my purpose in the work that I do. And it was at that time that I just like had that awakening around like I'm supposed to be doing more than just get a degree and get a good job and pay bills and be comfortable. Like that's not enough for me. I was called to do more than that. And the more was being a disruptor. The more was being a person who, like, no matter what work I'm doing, I'm creating a counter narrative to oppressive, dominant ways of thinking about people who look like me, about my community, about the young people I serve. And so that's really where my roots I would say like that's where the roots were planted around like doing this racial justice work that I do, doing this social justice work that I do. And it just seemed really natural to transition from like community organizing to education, because education is just like so central to any sort of work related to getting people to advocate for themselves, getting people to believe that they can have agency and impact change. It's all rooted in education. So that led me to the classroom. I spent 12 years as a public school teacher, teaching mostly Black students between middle school and high school, between Miami, 1 year in New York, because you got to do New York. If you have the opportunity to do New York, you got to do it right. But it was too fast and too big. So just 1 year. And then most of my time, though, in education, I spent in Chicago, where I am now. I also spent 3 of those years as a school leader, founding and leading an innovative micro school that was focused all on the Black global experience. But it also launched during the pandemic. So that didn't go exactly as planned. All the global experiential learning that was supposed to happen and that I fundraised for ended up being virtual global experiences for Black students. But we did what we could in a pandemic world. But yeah, for me, teaching, what I love the most about it, what kept me there despite burnout, despite challenges, despite honestly just a lot of inherently racist structures that are in place in our education system, what kept me there was the relationships with the young people, the relationships with my colleagues, having that opportunity to create space for Black joy, creating space for identity affirmation, creating space for experiential learning, giving young people the space to get out of the classroom, go explore their neighborhoods, explore the country, explore other countries. So much of that was so big in my 12 years of experience. And that's what kept me there for so long, despite the challenges. And I think, and then also like being able to stay connected to young people over the years, whether it's, they've gone off to college and they connect back with me, or just honestly being out and about in Chicago and students recognizing me over the years, which I don't know how I look so different. I don't know how they still can pick me out of a group, just, walking down the street. But just like, being able to still hear young people talk about how what they learned in my class still impacted them when they left that classroom, or talking about how like what they learned in my classroom about power, race, class, gender, and oppression helped them to navigate all of those things when they went off to college or went off into their jobs. All of those relationships, all of those moments are what kept me in the classroom for so long. But I will say, as I think about the transition, going back to your original question about, how did I get into entrepreneurship, I will say, like, despite all those rewarding experiences that I had with young people and fellow educators over the years, there was also simultaneously this buildup of like, just like, how do I say? There was a buildup of like destructive practices towards myself, right? Like not taking care of my health, my mental health, my physical health, right? And all that is cumulative and it builds up, and you get to a breaking point where you're like, between not taking care of myself, between normalizing overworking, and then constantly feeling like you're resisting systems so that you can create safe, affirming, liberated spaces for young people. It's a lot. And so, by year 12, and coupled with a pandemic, I was like, all right, I gotta really, really pause and step back for like my own sake and figure out, how do I continue to do this work? How do I continue to do good work for young people? How do I continue to do good work for Black students? How do I continue to be a part of a movement for education equity? How do I continue to do that and be well and sustain? And so that's where, I paused. I went against who I typically am and just quit my job. Well, I didn't quit. I resigned at the end of the school year because I believe in finishing out a school year. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was just like, I know I can't keep doing this, and I'm going to trust God, trust myself, and just know that things will work out for the good, and that over these years, I've built enough community that people help me and support me in figuring it out. And that's exactly what happened. And then I think also it began to hit me that, throughout my journey as an educator, I was always being an entrepreneur. I was always figuring out how to raise money to take my students on trips outside the country, across the country, and around their neighborhoods. Not because anybody directed me to do it, but just because I was like, I want to do that. Or simply because young people are like, we want to travel more, we want to see more things. I was already, creating curriculum, not because anybody told me I needed to do it, but because I was like, the curriculum we're using doesn't work. We need something where our students see themselves show up in the curriculum. So I'm going to create it. They're just, I could just go on and on. I started just thinking about just all the ways that I was already being an entrepreneur. I just didn't have full control of my time and the journey. And I was balancing being an entrepreneurial teacher while also like being in the system, and following all the rules of the system. So, I just decided, so that, I guess I would say, so that inspired me to believe that like, I can do this. I can be an entrepreneur. I can give myself 2 years to see if I can make this thing work. And I'm on year 2 and it's going well. So, so it was the right decision.
Absolutely. I feel like there were so many gems that you just dropped in that opening question. This idea of, or, just like the being at tension with, you're wanting to create these liberatory experiences and space within the classroom, but like rest as being liberation, and but not, like living that out and recognizing that tension. And you're like, yeah, this isn't sustainable. How can I continue to do this work with like, preaching, practicing what you preach kind of.
Yeah.
But then also, just like having the strength and the courage to step out on faith and know like, I don't necessarily have a plan. I do know that I have these skills, taking stock of the strengths that you have. And like this, I can do this based on the skills that, that I've built up over my years of experience in the classroom. I was just talking with your fellow cohort mate, Dr. Peter Watts, about, we don't typically think of educators as entrepreneurs, but there are so many things that you do within the space that transfer right over to entrepreneurship, fundraising, creating curriculum, as you mentioned. So it's beautiful to see that like your journey brought you here, and you were able to make it make sense. And here you are, year 2, thriving and flourishing.
Yep. And I just want to connect back to what you just said about practicing what you preach, because another thing that really hit me as I made that decision to transition to entrepreneurship full time was, I can't be sitting in these schools telling young people, especially young Black people, you need to be able to critique dominant narratives in society. You need to be able to critique the way power, race, class, and gender interact. And you need to also be able to navigate it and disrupt it so that you can go out there and be a change maker, and you can go out there and like feel confident to pursue whatever dreams you have, right? I can't sit in these schools and say this to young people every day if I'm not fully living that myself. You know what I mean? And I was like, I gotta truly be living what I'm trying to inspire young people to live. And for me, that was a big part of it too. And figuring out like what are other pathways for me to still support school, still educate, still work with young people, still work with educators, but not necessarily in the way that I've been doing it for the past 12 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to talk about, just the impact that you have been having with Liberation Journeys. You said that this is your second year in entrepreneurship. I imagine your second year in leading Liberation Journeys. What have been, or could you share an example with us of just like a transformative moment or a success story where you saw the impact of the work that you're doing realized?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched in 2022, and We ran some pilots across Chicago, and then we did a pilot in DC. And when I think about the impact, I think about the fact that just in the pilot phase, all of our students who participated in our pilot programs wanted Liberation Journeys to come back to their schools. Nearly all of the students who completed the program felt a stronger sense of belonging within their schools. They felt like their identities were affirmed in our programming space. They felt like they actually walked away with the power, like they walked away feeling like they had the power to influence their school culture, right? They walked away, they expressed feeling like, yeah, I feel like I actually have some influence over my teachers and what happens, right? And so, it's hearing like all these students say that on their survey responses and also in our discussions. And then also like just, walking through halls and having students say to me or seeing me in the hallways or sending me emails saying, you're coming back, right? Where are we going next? What we working on next, right? Just like that eagerness, like the eagerness and expectation, like, oh, you started something new. Oh, we're going to keep this going, right? And to see that like consistently across the pilot programs, to hear students who are moving on to a new school say, I feel like we need this at my next school, right? And so hearing that, and then also hearing teachers say things like, I haven't engaged in a program that so authentically responds to student needs and interests, right? Like when I think about like, if this is the way young people and teachers are responding to our programming just in the pilot phase, imagine the impact we could have on those schools if our programming was there year round, if it was multi-year programming, right? If just in a pilot that was only a portion of the year at these different schools, like if we could inspire that sort of response from young people, and if it feels like such a novel new thing to their teachers, just the potential for impact is so great. And that's what really, that continues to be fuel for me to like continue to figure out, how do I fundraise? How do I scale? How do I sustain? Because it's just so clear to me that there is a need and a desire at every that's consistently the response whenever we bring our programming somewhere. And then a new moment of inspiration from the end of 2023, we just launched Liberated Educators Collaborative, which is a professional learning community for educators, and it's national. And I just did a bunch of one-on-one calls with most of the 20 educators who are in the cohort. Mm-hmm. And the majority of them were just so eager to create more space on their campuses for student voice and identity work. Even just thinking about the overwhelming response to the program. So, initially I was like, maybe I can get a few educators from Chicago to join this space and pilot some strategies that I'm putting together or collaborating on. Maybe we get a few people in Chicago who I know to do it. I just didn't anticipate having to turn any educators away because we had far more applicants than spaces available. I didn't anticipate having all these applicants from across different states. I was like, y'all don't know me. Like, Liberation Journeys just started. This is our first time trying to even create a professional learning space for educators. But there's just so much hunger for this sort of space, right? And just to think, classroom teachers who are really busy. I mean, we're experiencing unprecedented burnout, right? Mm-hmm. We're experiencing unprecedented challenges in terms of student engagement in schools. And, that word, I was like, I don't know, are teachers going to log on, sign up for this? And, and not only did people respond to the application, not only do we have overwhelming response to the application, but just the eagerness from the folks we did select to, even in the busiest time of the first half of the year, everyone logged in after a long day to join a virtual session. Really? Like, they surprised me, right? And they were just like this cohort. I mean, as you know, sometimes it can be quite challenging to get people to talk and engage in the Zoom virtual space. But just so much energy, so much life, so easy to just connect and communicate and get folks to share. And I'm like, wow. So I just feel like it really speaks to the need for a more collaborative and community focused space for teachers to reimagine schools. We really need to break away from traditional PD and give teachers more space with other like-minded educators to really think about how in this critical moment we're going to do schools differently.
Yeah. No, I love to hear. I remember when you launched the Liberated Educators program, and I love to hear that you had this overwhelming response. And obviously, you know, it's a need. And I love to hear that people were eager about it. I think just you're kind of speaking. This will dovetail into the next question I have, but you know, as entrepreneurs, like we put something together and we're not quite sure what the response will be. Like you get the, you know, you go out there, you pilot it, you get the feedback from the community. But even still, having positive feedback is still like a little bit of this fear that's living in you of like, are people going to respond to this the way that I think that they will, or the way that I hope that they will? So I just love to see that it did. People did respond. You created this new initiative, and people showed up and showed out. So I do want to talk a little bit just about the challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur of color. What have been some of the, or like the biggest challenge that you faced in this journey, and how have you overcome?
So many. When I saw that question, I was like, oh, we could just do the whole session on this question. But I mean, there's so many things. I think, you know, first you brought up fear. And for me, I think the biggest step was overcoming fear. And I think some of the things that bring up fear for me was, or some of the things that brought up fear were, you know, the statistics, the data showing, well, women are more likely to get less funding, especially women of color. You know, all these statistics around, well, you know, early stage nonprofits are more, you know, have a high failure rate. And so, you know, all this data that makes you like, well, oh, well, should I be doing this?
Right.
And then, you know, there's a really good chance I'm going to fail. And then I'm a woman and I'm Black. So all these data says there's an even higher chance. And then also, you know, as you go talk to different women, you know, I try my best to like insert myself in spaces where I can hear from other women, especially women of color, especially Black women, talk about being leaders and founders. And, you know, to be in spaces with these women who I admire, I'm like, oh, you are major. You are like the Beyonce of this lane. You're the Beyonce of that lane. And they're talking about people, people not believing in them, people thinking that they're not ready to lead, even if they've already led whole school districts or led whole organizations. Just, you know, a lot of people not believing in their leadership or giving them a hard time or making things difficult for them, and it being very much fueled by misogyny or very much fueled by racism or both. Was like, wow, okay, so really, should I be doing this? I'm not as amazing as her. I don't have the track record she has. And I think like that's initially like how I thought about that, right? But then I shifted my perspective and actually became inspired by those women's stories. Like, if a phenomenal woman who has this long track record of success can be doubted and still overcome it, like I find inspiration from that, right? And I think like hearing those stories of those women also helped me to like think about how is it that I'm also phenomenal, and how is it that I also have this power and expertise that makes me the right person to lead what I'm leading, in the same way that they were uniquely equipped to lead what they were leading. And so that's how that was a big part of me overcoming some of that initial fear, just finding like the strength in other Black women who are doing it, and their stories. I think some other challenges are the burden of Black excellence. So like, I believe in Black excellence. I love Black excellence. And I think we need to continue to highlight Black excellence. But at the same time, this idea that as a Black person, you're supposed to be expected to do it all in the face of adversity and in the face of, institutional racism. You're supposed to do it all and also be incredibly exceptional at it. And then if you're a Black woman, you got to also be magical while you're doing it. And that's a big burden, constantly being obsessed with like feeling like you need to perform at the highest level possible, always obsessing over, do I look polished enough? Do I sound smart enough? Do I have it together enough? Am I impressive enough? Right. And so honestly, I had to go through this period of, and it took a while and I'm still working on it, of like getting over that and like being proud of being proud and finding strength in our history of Black excellence, but not feeling like it needs to, not feeling like I need to be obsessed with excellence, especially in the way that like we define excellence in a mainstream way. Like I am still working on it, getting to a place of like defining my own excellence, right? Mm-hmm. So that I can be a part of the larger Black excellence, right?
Yeah.
There's just like so many. I don't know how, like, I got like a whole bunch of points on this of things I'm going through to overcome these challenges as a Black woman, as an entrepreneur. But I think the last thing that I'll just say is I think I really had to get to a place of believing that like this is the right time for me to be doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm the right person to do it. I'm worthy. I have power. And I give myself permission to live the life that I want. And I think so often women, especially Black women, are made to feel like we don't have permission to do things. And I also think, as a woman that wears multiple hats, right? I'm a mom, I'm a wife. You also can feel like, oh, I should have started when I was younger. I should have started before I had a kid, or, all these things. Or you look at other people other leaders who you feel like, oh man, they seem to have more time. They seem to have more that they can give to this. And no, like that comparison piece is really like a joy killer and will really like make you want to doubt yourself and feel like, let me just go back into the job that I know. And so I think that was really big for me, getting over comparing my journey and myself and my leadership style to other leaders that I admire and other leaders who I see are successful, and learning how to, just letting go of comparison and instead focusing on like what makes me uniquely equipped to do what I am trying to do and leaning into that.
Oh man, absolutely. So many. I'm like, advice, like, y'all, I hope you had your pen and paper out and we're taking notes, because you just dropped gems after gems. No, thank you for sharing all of that and just how you kind of, face those moments of feeling, like just doubting. Maybe there's like a little bit of self-doubt, but also, how do you navigate the naysayers out there who are like, no, this can't be done. But more so speaking to, like the self-doubt that comes up, because I know it's huge. It's huge when you're out here. They say, entrepreneurship is kind of like a lonely only journey. So you're your biggest critic and your biggest doubter sometimes, but being able to kind of shift your mindset to say like, I am enough. I am worthy of the life that it is that I want to live, and I am capable and empowered to do the work that it is that I'm doing. I think that is a really powerful mindset to carry.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to shift into your fellowship experience. You are a 2023 Camelback Fellow, fresh out the fellowship. And so I would love for those who, may be interested in applying to the fellowship, if you could just share some about your experience and how the fellowship helped you grow as a leader and helped you grow your venture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love Camelback, and I'm always talking about Camelback and trying to recruit people to apply. I mean, I can honestly say Camelback was the most important, most impactful thing that I did for myself as an entrepreneur. Like, I honestly feel like if I hadn't done Camelback when I did it at that very moment, I think I'd have been like, all right, I don't know about this entrepreneurship thing. I think I'm just gonna go back to what I know. It's almost like Camelback was such a turning point for me on this journey. And it's what kept me in this, honestly. So I'm just so grateful to Camelback for that. And just the intentionality and quality of the programming and of the people and just like the love. And I'm just like, this is just it. Like, I've been following Camelback since probably 2019. And I'm just like, people just keep talking about this thing, this Camelback. Like, what is a Camelback? And just how it's so different. And like, that's where it's at. You got to get in. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And I'm just like checking. I'm like, it looks good. It sounds good. It definitely sounds different. And then once I started going through the process, the application process, I was like, oh yeah, this is different. The just the love and care and inclusiveness of the space before you're even in it is just it's telling, right? So even when I applied and didn't get in, I was like, I still feel really good. They just made me feel really exceptional, even though they told me no. And no one else is doing that. No one else is making you feel like no one else is like rejecting you, but you're still feeling yourself, right? So just like that level of affirmation is amazing. And that level of like care about entrepreneurs of color and women entrepreneurs just shows that y'all are really real and really living the values that you put on your beautiful website. But when I think about like my experience as a fellow, I feel like there's 3 things that really stand out to me in terms of my growth. And that's competence, community, and confidence. So my Camelback experience really gave me the practical tools that I need as an early stage entrepreneur to feel competent to do what I am trying to do. I just feel like Camelback thought of everything an early stage entrepreneur needs and to be successful. And they're like, we're going to create the curriculum here. We're going to create all these tools here. And if you don't see the tool you need, we're going to connect you to somebody who can help you get access to that tool or resource. And to me, that's where the community comes in, right? So having access to these inspiring experts that have just such a wealth of knowledge and wide range of skills and experiences, right? That I just hadn't had access to that range of expertise before, and just how accessible the experts are, and not just the folks who are on the expert bench, but also just the Camelback team. To be able to just reach out to anyone on the Camelback team, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can we chat? And just people will make space for you. And it's just that's something else that was really unique about the experience, just the accessibility. Like, even though Camelback is this space that's like highly respected, when I tell people I got into Camelback, folks in the education entrepreneurship space, like, what? You got into Camelback? You like kind of feel yourself when you tell people you got into Camelback. Like, yes, I'm one of them. It feels good. But it's like, but also like, it's just such an accessible community, right? No matter how impressive someone's background is, you don't feel like, no one makes you feel like they are too important for you. And I love that. And that is rare. And then of course, my peers, my colleagues, the other fellows, right? So there's so much expertise just among the fellows that come in. So, they may not, you may not be on the expert bench, but like all of your colleagues in the fellowship, they're all experts as well. So, and they're all so accessible as well, despite being so busy. So like all of that just creates this beautiful community where you just feel like, I can't fail. Like I have access to much to fail. If I fail, it's because I chose to. Right. And then, and all of that I feel works together just to build this confidence that I have in myself that I honestly just did not have before I came into Camelback. So when I'm talking about feeling like I'm worthy and I'm the right person for this work and no one can do it like me, and like really feeling myself, so much of that came out of the Camelback experience. And it really showed, I think all of it works together to show you that as an entrepreneur, it's not just about getting money. Like, money is clearly very important, but it's not just about getting a grant or getting an investment. It's about having the right community that can help you know how to be more strategic with those resources, and also give you access to non-financial resources, because oftentimes that's just as important as the financial resource. And then you can have the money, you can have the people, but if you don't really believe in yourself, if like you don't take yourself and your ideas seriously, if you don't feel big and important, who is going to feel like you're big and important? So yeah, just all the pieces work together at Camelback, just in the fellowship, just to like elevate you to the next place that you need to go. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing about your experience and how impactful it has been to your journey. I love to hear that, a lot of times people, you've mentioned, they think like the capital piece is the most important piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, again, talking to Dr. Watts about, a lot of times we feel like money is the most important thing, but it's also the social capital and the community that you get to be a part of within the fellowship, within your current cohort, but also like the fellows that have come before and the expert bench and the coaches that you get to work with, like how powerful that can be to elevating your journey and getting you to where you need, getting you to that next level. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. And we're super happy to have you a part of the Camelback fam. So, when you think about the work that you're doing with Liberation Journeys, we started from the beginning of what brought you into entrepreneurship, talked about the work that you're, in the thick of right now. When you think about the future in 10 to 20 years down the line, what do you hope is the legacy you leave behind with Liberation Journeys? And what is the personal legacy that you hope to leave behind for those who come after you?
So my hope is that Liberation Journeys cultivates that next wave of young Black leaders and educators who will inspire and lead movements that advance the collective liberation of schools. Um, I really believe that it's important that young people and the educators who are committed to their leadership and their growth and their learning think about liberation in schools as not just like this intellectual or abstract idea, but like a reality that we should be living. And that it's not like just this one thing. Like it really is a journey. It is about like young people and students not just working together, but like defining what is a liberated school and redefining it because it's going to keep changing with time, right? I think like how I would have defined a liberated classroom before the pandemic is different than how I would define it now. And so I think like we need that, I'm hoping that like our work, like that's our legacy, um, developing those student leaders and those teacher leaders who are like really committed to liberation in schools. And I hope that we're leaving behind a really practical blueprint for those young people and those educators to co-create, to co-lead, and dream up new ways of doing school. Because I think like in order for that to be real, like people need a practical blueprint for doing it. It has to go beyond like talk that sounds good and inspiring, and like giving people the tools um to do it and do it in their own ways. In terms like personally, like that's a heavy one. I feel like I'm always thinking more in the context of like my venture, what do I want to do with this venture and the different iterations of that. But I think like maybe from a personal perspective, I'm hoping that the legacy that I leave behind is creating, helping other people like me, helping other educators like me um, give themselves permission to do this work for young people, do this work for themselves in a way that's liberating for them personally. There's just I over the years and now, like I just am connected to so many exceptional educators, like just really dope, exceptional people who are oftentimes way too humble. um, and like who, there's just so much that they want to do. There's so much that they believe, but they may not have the confidence to do it. And that doesn't always mean like going to be an entrepreneur, right? It could mean um, ways you want to lead in your school still from the classroom or outside the classroom, or ways that you want to take your experience as an educator and maybe transition from the classroom or from the school and like dream your next dream, right? So I'm hoping that, what I'm also leaving behind is like resources and tools that other women in particular, other educators similar to me can feel like, you know what, it is real, it is practical. I can dream the life I want to dream and I can go live it and I can give myself permission to do it. And here's some different resources and avenues for me to do that.
Awesome. All right. So, we've gone through, we've talked about legacy, we've talked about where you started, where you are right now. And now what's next for Liberation Journeys? What do you all have on tap? What should we keep an eye out for?
Absolutely. So, as I said before, we recently launched our inaugural cohort of Liberated Educators Collaborative. So, the focus of this space is bringing educators together who are super committed to turning classrooms into liberated spaces where young people's voices and their identities and racial justice are at the forefront. And so, in this space, we're sharing ideas, we're talking about innovation, we're talking about best practices, we're dreaming, we're reimagining. And then also, what's really cool about this space is that the members of the cohort are piloting our strategies and parts of our professional development in their school. So here we have 20 different schools across the country in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New York, Connecticut, Texas, and Florida, all piloting our strategies and our professional development content in their classrooms. And that's just like really exciting. And I can't wait to like I want to stay present in the moment, but I'm also really excited about what that impact will be, what the student response will be, what teachers will say about the impact it had on their classroom culture, and being able to share that impact with our larger community. So that's one major initiative we're really excited about. We're also planning to do a second cohort in the fall. So we're also looking for new educators to connect with us to be a part of that. We're also another major initiative that we're working on is our SEL curriculum. So we're taking the student curriculum that we use and during our pilot programs, and we're expanding it now to have a year-long SEL curriculum. And so that's also really exciting. And the aim of the curriculum is it's geared towards middle and high school students. And the idea is to equip students with the social and emotional awareness and leadership skills to advocate for the sort of learning experience that they want on their school campuses, and also learning like healthy ways to partner with the adults in the space um, to advocate for the change that they want. So we're really excited about that curriculum. The plan is for that to be completed by the spring and ready to launch in schools. So very excited about that. Those are the two. So those are our two main initiatives that we're focused on for 2024. I'm very excited about getting our curriculum into schools for the next school year, and then learning so much from this first cohort of Liberated Educators Collaborative so that we can use that to build out our next cohort.
As we wrap up the conversation and kind of come to a close of the conversation, I would love if you could share, just reflecting on your journey where you've come from, one piece of advice that you would offer your younger self about becoming an entrepreneur.
Hmm. I would. Oh, that's. I really should have thought about this one in advance. Okay. One piece of advice I would share with my younger self about becoming an entrepreneur. I would say, so the advice I would give to my younger self about becoming an entrepreneur is start with dreaming really big. Um, like start your journey with dreaming really, really big and be unafraid to do the things that scare you the most. I think that's the advice I would give. I think if you're gonna do it full out. Like, don't be an entrepreneur and try to like, okay, I'm gonna do it, but like, what's the safest, most conservative way I'm gonna do it? You can always go back to the safe life. You can always go back to what you were doing before, and you can always go do something else. I think that's the other thing I would say. Like, I think like I would have for sure, my younger self would have been an entrepreneur sooner if I wasn't afraid to do the things I was the most scared to do. If I wasn't afraid to dream bigger, to get myself more excited and inspired to go out and do it. And if I just rested in the confidence that if it doesn't work out, I can do something else. I don't ever have to, you don't ever have to stay stuck in anything. You can always dream something else, do something else. And I think when you think about it like that, it's like, why not? Why not try? Why not pursue your dreams? So that's what I tell my younger self.
Oh my gosh. I so appreciate that. I so appreciate that. I know, we oftentimes will carry fear, and fear is what stops you in your tracks from doing the thing that, you dream of doing the most. But on the other side of that, oftentimes it's like the life, as they say, the life that you imagined, even greater and grander than what you imagined it to be. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that advice for sure.
Yeah.
Um, well, as we close out, if folks want to learn more about the work that you're doing with Liberation Journeys, if they want to connect, support, or even connect with you on just the entrepreneurship tip, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah. So folks should definitely check out our website, liberationjourneys.org, and first sign up for our mailing list so that we can make sure they know when, so that we can make sure folks are aware of when our next cohort for educators is opening up, so that folks can know when our SCL curriculum is going live and how they can purchase it for their schools or their programs for young people. Also, on our website, they can connect with us via social media. So on Instagram, we're Liberation Journeys. On Twitter, and what's the other one? I guess it's not Twitter anymore. On X, and on X and Facebook, we're Liberation Journeys without the vowels. I never know how to like just say that in an easy way, but Liberation Journeys, remove the vowels from journeys. On X and Facebook, but Instagram is easy. It's just Liberation Journeys on Instagram, and also LinkedIn. We're also on LinkedIn, so you can that's easy. Just type in Liberation Journeys on LinkedIn to connect with us as well. So we're on all of them, all the socials, and I think to be more specific about ways people can get involved. So I would say if you're interested in the professional development offerings that we have, um, if you're a principal, assistant principal, or some other school leader, or maybe you're someone at a school district level that's looking for professional development for your school, or for the schools that you run, please reach out to us through our website, connect with us via email or through our mailing list so that we can share with you our offerings. If you're a teacher and you're really interested in like just developing yourself, please reach out to us via email or join our mailing list so that we can connect you to our professional learning community. It also does include a stipend because our teachers deserve as many stipends, financial rewards as possible. And then also, if you're someone who's just looking to invest financially in any sort of effort around developing educators, creating liberatory spaces for students, particularly students of color, you can also donate to us directly on our website as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We'll be sure to drop all of these links and handles in the chat so you guys can access them more readily. Um, Aiyeshia, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all of, just hearing more about your experience and your journey, what brought you to entrepreneurship. It truly is inspiring, especially for those of us who are scared to take the leap. Just knowing that we can do something different, but it's worth taking a chance on ourselves. I appreciate all of the advice and the encouragement that you shared, and just hearing more about the work that you're doing with Liberation Journey. So thank you for being here with us today.
Yep. And thank you for having me. This is a really great end to my day. I feel really energized by this conversation and just I love talking to you, period. And yeah, just thank you for having me in the space. Like it just felt really good to share my journey with you on this platform. And just anytime I can talk about Camelback is a good time. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for everybody who joined us today. You guys, we hold these conversations once a month, every second Tuesday of every month. So be on the watch for our next episode airing next month. Until then, be well, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.